right, how we doing, ladies and gentlemen? It's your host, Scotty Stuch, Sober Sitdown. We have a different type of guest tonight, offbeat of our normal last couple of guests being in the mob world. We have radio sensation, internationally known, and the author to the book, I'm Not an Addict, I'm Just an Ass, Geri Petito.
Hi, Scotty. How are you?
How we doing, Jerry?
Good. You know, I am Italian, honey, so I did have connections. The way you said that, I cracked up.
Yeah. Uh, but yeah, we're gonna touch base with our audience finally. People are like, you're sober, sit down, and all you've had on is people that were in organized crime. So, people don't understand that this is like a wide variety show. It's not just based upon drugs and alcohol. It's about instilling hope and faith to those that are wanting to give up on themselves, whether they're struggling. Because there's millions of addictions out there. There's people that are addicted to gambling. There's people that are addicted to spending too much money on Amazon. There's people that have addictions to, they're having financial troubles. They're having marital issues. There's all different types of issues that go on in the world every day.
Yep.
And, what I'm trying to do is prevent people from not being able to cope with those issues and, let people know that it's not too late to make that change in your life, whether it's that toxic relationship, that job you hate going to, being in debt. There's always a solution to the problem. And I hate to see people give up on themselves. So the point of my podcast is to instill that hope and faith for people not to give up. Sometimes our roads to the end of that tunnel are longer than the other guys, or girls, but you just got to keep moving and keep working hard and keep making those sacrifices.
You're right.
So, like I always start my segments, who's Geri Petito? Who's Geri Petito as a young woman? And we could just take it from there.
Okay, so I'll give you a little background. I was brought up in Long Island City, New York. Of course, Italian, like I said, and everyone lived on the same block. So my dad owned our apartment building, 6 families. My aunt lived all the way upstairs. My grandparents on the bottom. My other aunt lived across the street. So that's how it always was back then. And they would hang out the windows and watch us. So we could play in the streets and we could do whatever we want. And even our neighbors watched us. And it was an amazing time. And my father's brother, my Uncle Carmine, he's still alive. They all came from Italy. Okay, my dad came from Italy at 13 and the rest of the family followed. Finally, everybody was here. But my dad's brother went into the Marines and he moved to New Jersey. He met a Jersey girl, my aunt. So he asked my dad to buy a lot next to him and to build a home. So that's what happened. We moved to New Jersey when I was 12 years old, going into 7th grade. And this is where it all begins. So I had a lot of older cousins. And they would come and spend weekends with us. And they also lived in our apartment building. So we all were sad, when we weren't together. And they would bring pot. They were older. They would give me my first hit of pot. Things like that would go on. Well, in New Jersey, I'm just going to say a neighbor. We had a neighbor. Now, and there's a reason, Scotty, this is very important, and there's a reason why I'm saying this. I was, I believe, 14 at the time, and he was in his late 20s. But I did not look like a 14-year-old. Okay? I probably looked like I was about 18, 19, if you're getting my drift. So I'm saying that for a reason. It wasn't like he was 40 and I looked like a kid. All right? So they were moving away and he approached me. And he did some terrible things with his hands, put his hands down my pants. So I have it all in my book. Of my shirt, said some terrible things, whispered to me. And I was a tough kid because, again, I came from New York. And I said to him, you have about 30 seconds to get your hands off of me or my father will kill you with his bare hands and end up in prison. So he just went, "Tuh," and walked away. Now you got to keep in mind something. I'm 61 years old, so this was a long time ago, and things were very different. You know, if anyone ever asked me for advice now, I would say you go right to the cops, you tell your parents. Okay? So I knew I couldn't tell my father, but I told my uncle. And my uncle said, "You're right. You can't tell your dad, he'll kill him." So my uncle took care of it, told him we knew, blah, 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 blah. So before they moved away, he saw me and he said, "You snitch," and I just walked away. Now, there's a reason why I had to tell you that little story, because that was why I started really using in my 20s. So I was smoking pot because of my cousins forever, you know, and it was terrible, you know, what they did. But now I'm in my 20s, and what happened to me was this. I always thought, did we do the right thing? Did we let a child molester go? And that's why I said to you, I didn't look like a child and he was only in his late 20s. I couldn't live with that, Scotty. Believe me when I tell you. So anytime something, and I had a great family, believe me, one of the best families. And I had a lot of friends. I was very popular. I was really cute back then. I had a lot of boyfriends. So I was never bullied. I had no issues. I had a lot of friends. But I couldn't live with that. Did we do the right thing? So once I got older and different things went on in my life, different hurts, I looked to more drugs, and it was heroin. And I was involved with heroin probably for 3 years. And you know, so my drugs started really when I was like 13. So all the way up until I was 30. And
Now, not to cut you off, but just to stay on topic with that. So when you say you like started doing drugs, when you were like 13, like recreational, you know, like marijuana, maybe
right.
some alcohol use.
Never alcohol. I hated the taste of it. So it was always pot.
So would you say that when you were like 13 doing pot, did you have an addiction to pot, or was it just like more or less recreational use? Because when I started drinking, I didn't start really drinking until I was like 19 or 20, but I really didn't get hooked on it till, like, and take it to the next level till I was about 22,
Okay.
23.
When I was a kid, it was recreational. And whoever could get it for me and all that. And it got to be more and more recreational. Then I started doing cocaine. This was before the heroin. So I was doing speed. I was doing cocaine. I was doing a lot of different things up until the heroin. Okay? Someone introduced me to the heroin and said, "This is going to make you forget everything, feel great." So, okay, that's what happened there. Before I continue, I want to share something about God. God saved me through it all anyway. Saved me through everything. I'm going to talk about that, but I have to share something. I struggled my entire life, even after I got clean and sober at 30 years old. You know what? Let me go backwards. Let me continue on track. So I started doing, like I said, heroin and all that. I had beauty salons back in the day. And I was making way too much money way too young. So that wasn't a good thing for someone that was already using drugs. So it just got completely out of control. And I'm going to share with you when I hit rock bottom, okay? It got to the point where, now this is going to sound crazy. I don't know if you know the area of Trenton, New Jersey.
I've been on the outskirts, like in Philly,
Okay.
outside of Trenton.
Okay. Trenton has become very, very dangerous. Okay. Back then, it wasn't so dangerous, but it still wasn't the greatest place to be in the middle of the night. So I had a young African American drug dealer at the time, and I had a white drug dealer. Wait till you hear this. So at 1 o'clock in the morning, me and my friend got in my black and gold Eldorado Cadillac with Elvis license plates. Talk about flashy, right? To go cop dope. Now, that car and those plates saved my life. So sometimes I giggle and say even Elvis helped save my life. So I had beauty salons and I had very wealthy clients. One of my clients, who's still in my life today, was the boss of all the judges, the municipal court judge in my county. Okay? I used to go to the courthouse often and have lunch with her. So we go to this guy's house. He comes out. He doesn't have any dope. He has to get in the back of my car, and we have to go 2 blocks. An unmarked police car recognized my license plates and my car from being at the courthouse so much. So he called the judge, and she said, pull them over, get that person out of her car, tell her to go home, get some sleep and get some rest and get some help. That was when I said enough is enough. That happened. So he pulled us over once we got the 10 bags of heroin. The kid gets back in my car with 10 bags of dope, pulls us over, comes to the window, and he says, Jerry, Judge so-and-so said, go home, get this guy to your car now. I threw him out, threw my friend out, threw the bags out. I went home and I put myself in a rehab. I stayed in a rehab for 31 days at the time. It was Princeton House. And I haven't been back there until I had to visit someone, and I actually brought my books that we will get to talk about. And they let me bring my books into Princeton House and to share them. So I come out of there, and this is what happened to me. I did everything they said to do for the first 30 days. I got a sponsor, went to meetings every day, but it wasn't for me. I had great family and friends. I had a great support system. I wanted to shoot myself because they kept telling you have to go up in front of the people and say, hi, I'm Jerry, I'm an addict, I'm, powerless over this addiction, this disease of life. No, bull. We have to start looking at addiction differently. I wanted to shoot myself, Scotty. I said, I'm not an addict anymore. And I'm not powerless, not over anything, especially with God. God saved me that day. That was God. Okay? So, ever since then, at that point, I always knew that I had a calling to help other addicts. And I never missed an opportunity. For a very long time, I would help addicts and family members and this and that. I also became a recovery coach. I cured myself of 2 cancers. I was probably 31, something like that. I stopped doing drugs really at 30, and like 31, 32, I started getting sick, So I had 2 cancers, colon and breast. And the long story short with that was I knew if I went to the doctors for it, I would probably die. I was very sick. So I found a gentleman who cured himself of colon cancer. He's still alive to this day in his 80s. They told him he was going to die at 42 years old, and he's still alive through fasting. So I learned how to fast. I'm certified in that. And I cured myself. I did a 2-month water fast. I brought a home colonic system into my home. I was serious about it. Changed my life. I became all plant-based, all organic, everything. All my products, everything, are all pure. So through all of this, all right, I never stopped knowing that one day I was going to really be used to help other addicts. So I'm going to share something with you. 2016, I get woken up out of a sound sleep by what I feel is like somebody doing this on my shoulder. And I open my eyes and I hear a voice. It said, write your book. And I said, okay, Lord, you want me to write my book? Okay. And I wrote my book. So I wrote it in 3 weeks at the time. It was only this big at the time. And I had my friend come over because I hand wrote it, and I said, we have to get this in the computer the right way. And her uncle who passed, he was a publisher and all that. And she said, Jerry, we're going to send it to a lot of different publishers, probably 100 of them. She said, they may like it, they may not. It could take years. I said, no. God wrote the book. Send it to Simon & Schuster. She laughed and said, okay. I said, put your contact info with mine. 5 days later, Scotty, we got a call. They loved my book and published it. That was in 2016. So now I'm going to tell you something before I continue about my book journey and my radio journey. So I'm going to share something with you. My father passed away. I was 57 years old of Alzheimer's. We took care of him. He was an incredible dad. But his brother, my uncle, and my aunt were celebrating their 50th wedding anniversary and had this big party planned at this golf course. And they were going to cancel because that's what Italians do. They don't believe you should be celebrating. And I said, absolutely not. My father would be very upset. We need to have this party. So what they didn't tell me was this person was going to be there that touched me as a kid, that moved away. Okay?
Did they know? Did they know
They
what
knew,
he
but
did?
it was okay. All right, I'm just going to say it. So his wife and my aunt were very good friends and still are, and I still love her. And her kids are like cousins to my aunt's kids. So they're all very close. So she should have been invited. But they forgot to just mention it to me. So what happened was, I'm getting out of my car, and I see my uncle, whose party it is, tying his other brother, my other uncle's tie in the parking lot from New York. My other uncle was from New York. He's gone now. So they're standing there. So I get out of my car to walk over to them, and I see the wife walking from the parking lot to go in, and I said to myself, "Oh, I didn't know they were invited, but she should be invited." And I didn't see him, and I thought, "Oh, maybe he's not here or he died," because we don't talk about him. Okay, so whatever. So she goes in. I go to my uncle, and I have my back to the parking lot. Okay, and all of a sudden I hear a voice. Hello, old man, congratulations. And I see a hand going to shake my uncle's hand while my uncle looks at me with these eyes like, please, please don't, please don't. And I turned around and he says, hello, Geraldine. And I went, whatever, really? And I walked inside. So I talked to his wife, but I stayed away from him from that side of the room. But here's the good news, okay? And I'm going to share something with you. The party's over and he was following me. And as I'm walking through a room, he was coming at me with his lips perched. Now he's in his late 70s. And he tried to kiss my lips. And I moved my face and he got my cheek and he slapped my butt. So I know what you're thinking. Did I punch him in the face? No, I didn't. I'm going to tell you why. So I said, really? You're still a dirty old man. And he said, so what? And he slapped my butt again. And this is what I said to him. You better count your blessings. I said, God gave me an incredible gift right now, and I don't want to destroy your wife. I said, you are a dirty old man, and I walked away. This is what I felt. Thank you, God, for making him do that, because that told me I did not let a child molester go. He would not have been interested in me at 57 years old if he was a child molester. So that's why I said in the beginning I didn't look like a kid, and he was only in his late 20s. So I really was happy that happened. I have been able, Scotty, to put that at rest. I can't even tell you. God, it's in God's timing. God worked it out, and I still needed to know. So that was my journey with that. So then I wrote the book, and if you have questions in between, you can just ask me. So the book was this big, I told you, right? And Doc G from Hamilton Radio got in touch with me to meet with me, to talk to me. He wanted me to be interviewed on his radio station. So his daughter, DJ Danny, interviewed me. So he got in touch with me and said, Geri, you have a great radio voice. And he said, I'd love for you to come aboard. So I thought about it. I wasn't sure. And then I laughed and said, what am I, crazy to say no? I was in trouble every day of my life, Scotty, for talking. This is where God's got to put me. So I said, I'm in. So as of Hamilton Radio, I was picked up by several other networks, PANJ Radio. I mean, it was crazy. Beverly Nation, D.A.M.O.N Looks. Now O&E took over that. Remember Then Radio. Now I do a podcast. We're all over the world. I'm up to like 17 million listeners on O&E. It's craziness what's happened. We're out of Lagos, Nigeria. It's really crazy what God's done. I'm saying that to say this. Thank God I said yes to Doc G. We did a lot of shows on addiction. And I'll never forget this. We were live on Facebook years ago. And we were able to get calls at the time. Someone called in and said, Geri, your book saved my life. She said, I wanted to kill myself last week. And I remembered your book and your shows, and I grabbed one of your shows on addiction, and I didn't do it. That was enough for me. And to this day, I get messages, sometimes 10 a day, from people. Geri, don't stop. Thank you for your encouragement. Thank you for doing what you're doing. Thank you for keeping the music alive. Because everyone's been on such, the last couple, 2.5, 3 years, I mean, all over the world, right? People have been on lockdown, couldn't leave their homes. I mean, everybody's been depressed. So all the musical shows that I've brought to them live, I mean, it's just really helped everybody. So I thank God that he brought me on this journey. But in 2020, through, COVID, through all this craziness, right, I decided to revise my book because I wanted to put in this book now everything that's happened from 2016 to 2020. And now, here's how big the book is, Scotty.
Jesus.
Okay? And yes, Jesus is in it. Is it okay if I read one of the poems?
You can read all the poems.
Well, we won't have time for all the poems. I have 2 poems that I would love to read, but these 2 poems are important and they give messages. This one I want to share with everyone out there who thinks they can't change. Yes, you can. Okay? There's hope, because if it happened to me, I mean, look at Scotty, right? It can happen to you. The poem is called Change Your Choice, because we all have choices, right? I had a life-changing moment that I knew had to be. The only way to change things was to first start with me. So I looked in the mirror and woke up one day and thought to myself I needed to pray. So I asked God to change me, to help me stay strong, to clean up my mess, to right what's been wrong. I cleaned up my diet, I cleaned up my room, I cleaned up all habits with this old dirty broom. I kept going forward and never looked back. I refused to derail, stayed on the right track. I realized my worth and all that did matter through my selfish behavior, the lives I had shattered. I finally decided at 30 years old to stop abusing my body, my mind, heart, and soul. My life-changing choice that I had once made. Over 31 years now, guys, my debt has been paid. So you read all my thoughts on how to stay clean. It's all or nothing, my friend. There's no in between. To live or to die is a choice you must make. Your life is not worthless and you're not a mistake. One day at a time is a slogan you've heard. It works if you work it while applying his word. For you to get healthy, for your mind not to fail, escaping reality will keep you in jail. With addictive behavior, sex, drugs, food, or money, substituting addictions now isn't that funny. I'm not an addict, this too shall pass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. But at least today, Scotty, I'm a smart ass. Back then, honey, I was a dumbass.
I love it.
So do you have any questions? I'll read another one in a little while.
No, I can totally get it because, when we first get into sobriety, I'll backpedal it a little bit. Like when I was active in addiction with alcohol really bad, I would sometimes question, because I always had faith in God. I was very, I'm not an every Sunday church
No, me
goer,
neither.
but I do believe in God. I'd sit there and when I started getting into the later parts of my addiction and, having to strategize and maneuver in order to get what I wanted to get and, have to hide. And, I'm sitting there and I know what I'm doing is wrong. But, after time promising family members and stuff I wouldn't do it again. And then I'm sitting there, and I'm, I get my moment and I'm getting ready to, get messed up again. And I'd sit there and look at a glass of liquor or whatever it was that whatever I had my hands on at that point in time. I would say to myself, before even putting it up to my lips, God, why are you putting me through this? Because I knew where it was going to take me, blackouts and, letting people down in my family and just taking myself out of character because that truly wasn't the person that I was meant to be. And I would ask God, I'm like, God, why are you putting me through this? Why are you making me different than other people? Why am I sitting here fighting this addiction? And, I couldn't understand it at the time, but I believe what you say is God has a path for all of us. And I feel as though that, whether you believe in God or whether you don't, I feel as though that if I didn't experience that then, how could I be sitting here today having sober sit down if I didn't go through that life as an addict?
I have to.
I couldn't be sitting.
Well, I have to say something to you.
Good.
I have to say something to you before I forget, and I'm not trying to interrupt you. I just wanted to say this real quick. So, what you just said is so powerful because God doesn't make us go through these things. Okay, we have free will. So we choose to go through these things. But what God does is he's got his hand out saying, when you're done, I'm going to use you. And you obeyed that. And here you are today. So now continue. You're right. Here you are today. Now look what you're doing. So if you didn't go through that, you wouldn't be doing this.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like everything I realize up to my point of being 37 years old, everything has a timeline and a purpose to it, no matter what. And there's usually a reason behind why certain things happen to you in your life, whether you have faith or not. People have to understand that certain things happen for certain reasons, and everything is explainable to an extent. I mean, my mother passed away at 48. She was having health issues. Maybe or maybe not, she could have made some health modifications to make herself a little bit more healthier, but something like that is kind of unexplainable. There's not really a reason, there's no purpose really behind that, for God to send me a message to lose a parent like that, there isn't. I mean, it definitely opened my eyes to realize that, life is fragile and it can be taken away from you in a heartbeat. It was an eye-opening experience, but, going back into the timeline aspect of it is I realized when I first started drinking, people say you're born as an addict and and it's hereditary and all this other stuff, but there's a fine line that I remember when I was in my 20s I used to play hockey, and I was in some local hockey leagues where they called it the beer league, so a bunch of adults getting together and after the game people having a couple drinks. Well, I was able to have one or two beers, and then after my hockey game with my teammates in the locker room, and then go home. And I was controlled. I'd get up for work the next day, and there was never any issues. And then when I was about 22, I started hanging out with a different group of people. I started hanging out in different parts of town, nightclub scenes and corner bars where there was power drinkers. Started hanging out with people that, might or might have not been addicts, but definitely didn't, socially drink. And I started drinking like them. And there's a point that I actually remember. I timelined it. I actually timelined it to an actual time and date to where I went from casual drinking to addiction drinking. And I remember it till this day. The one day I was a bartender, and I came into work. I went to a college party the night before, all hungover, and my first two customers were true alcoholics. They were there when we opened the door, shaking and all, And I just felt like complete crap. And I remember saying they were the two guys that were at the bar. They're they worked at my dad had where my dad's bar was. There was a racetrack across the street where they did the horse racing and stuff like that. So these guys worked with the horse races and stuff like that. And they're Scott, what's your deal? They're you're not yourself today. And I'm oh man, I had a late one last night. I'm was out with my buddies too late. And, they're well, just start drinking again. And I'm no, I can't. I'm bartending. I can't start drinking again. They're we're telling you, it's your dad's place. Just do it. They're make yourself whatever you drank last night and you'll feel incredible. And I'm no, that's a bad idea. So, they kept, enticing me. And, I just said, screw it. I was I'm just going to make myself, a quick mixed drink behind the bar and screw it. They told me it'll make me feel better. I can't even stand up. I'm nauseous. I feel like crap. So I started drinking, and it was 11 o'clock in the morning. I never drank that early. And I gave in to that, and I had one, then I had two, and before you know it, the one waitress had to take me home because I was too drunk to even stand behind the bar. So then every time after that I started getting to that point with my friends, the night before I got too drunk, the next morning when I felt like crap, I would start binge drinking again. because I knew that that would make me feel better. So I was about 22 when that happened. So that is where I timelined it to. I got introduced to how to binge drink and how to take one day into the next and needing that to make yourself feel better. And that's where, you can actually pinpoint. So from that point on, I can never go back to social drinking. I can never go back to being just having one or two and going out for dinner and then coming home. It was past the point. You can, once you go over that line, like I hear people saying like, oh, I was an alcoholic for 20 years, then I stopped for a year. I dried out and matured my brain, and now I can have a couple on the weekends. That'll never last long.
Okay, wait, I totally disagree with you, and I'm going to share why, okay? Now, and I'm not telling you to go get a drink, because if for you can't, don't, okay? But let me share with you something, okay? So what we're being taught is that once an addict, always an addict, and it is a disease that you were born with or developed, and it will be for life. I'm here to tell you that's a lie. Now, once we believe that and we brainwash ourselves, it will happen. You will go through that and pick up and not be able to stop, because we've already told our brain that lie. I've studied, listen, I've traveled all over the world. I was even in Russia in hospitals behind the scenes, and I've even studied the brain under microscopes. Okay? So this is what I want to tell everybody listening. That, okay, so Bill W., right? Okay, he started AA. His intentions were absolutely pure. He kept God in the program. He wanted to heal the alcoholics and addicts. He approached a friend of his, and you can look this up. This is out there, and it's in my revised book. He approached his friend, who was a doctor at the time, and said, I'm suicidal. I'm depressed. I'm an addict. I need help, And they gave him niacin, and it's a vitamin to help you purge and sweat. Just like saunas. Okay? It cured him. When he felt completely cured, and you could look this all up, he approached AA and said, we have to give all the addicts niacin. And you know what they told him? Shut your mouth. Because by then, corporate America already infiltrated, pharmaceutical already infiltrated, and they said, we're keeping them addicts. Shut your mouth. Now you could go research that. Okay? So here's what they did. They brainwashed everybody. So I don't know if you still go to meetings or any of that, but the majority of people that I know don't stop. They go to meetings for years and years and years and years and years. Okay, so they become addicted to the meetings. But what they're also doing is being brainwashed. So, and I'm going to share something with you, and I'm going to tell you how I can prove this. Now, on one hand, AA and NA teach the addict you are powerless over your addiction, and you have a disease for life. So what does that make you? An addict forever? Powerless over your addiction. But they tell the family members through Al-Anon, don't help the addict until they choose to stop. Okay? Even if it means not giving them money for food, whatever, make them hit rock bottom. Now, think about how ridiculous that is. How could they possibly be telling the addict, you have this poor disease for life, you were probably born with it, it's forever, and you're powerless over it, but we're going to tell your family members to kick you to the curb and not help you? So that's contradictory. So that means they're lying to both parties here. And unfortunately, people are believing it. The truth is, yes, you have a disease, but you have a dis-ease of the brain cells while using. And that could be with anything. It could be with food. It could be with gambling, whatever. You do change your brain cells. You do. Okay, so you do have these addictive behaviors that are in full force now. But when you really, truly make that decision to change, if you change 100% and you change everything in your life, including refusing to say I'm an addict and I'm powerless over this disease, you will no longer be powerless over it. I haven't had a craving in 30 years. I was messing with drugs since I was a kid. I haven't had a craving for anything in 30 years. God removed it all. Okay? So I prayed to him and said, heal me. I changed everything in my life. Again, I became vegan. I'm not telling you have to become vegan. No, but for my health issues at the time, I had to. But once we alter our thoughts, we now become that new person. Once we tell ourselves the truth, we are not that person anymore. We are not an addict, and we are not powerless. Now we have all the power in the world. So that's the one thing that differs from me and other addicts or recovered addicts and all that. You know, they won't even let me speak at meetings. They won't let me speak anywhere, okay? Because they will not allow me to say that. But if you check out what Bill W. did, you will find it there. And they told him we're keeping them addicts. So that's what they've done. They've brainwashed them. And to me, it's very sad and heartbreaking. One more thing I want to say about that. Use your head a little bit here and think about this, right? If someone is truly, truly powerless, how could they tell the family members they have to choose and they have to make that decision? If you're powerless, you can't make a decision. So everything they're teaching is so contradictory. And I wish I could just touch every addict and give them a safe place for a year. In 1 year, it is proven your brain cells can be altered and healed. In 1 year. Now I'm going to tell you one more thing they do. If you go into rehabs and meetings, what do they have? They have soda machines, right? They have cake machines, candy machines, sugar. They're keeping you addicts because your brain cannot distinguish between sugar and drugs. It thinks you're putting heroin in your body. So your brain is only fueled by two things, healthy fat and sugar. That's it. Sugar destroys it and kills it, and healthy fats heal it. So, I am 61 years old, haven't been on a medication in 30 years. Okay? Imagine that. That's pretty cool, right? So, the problem is they're giving addicts in rehabs the sugar machines, soda, candy, whatever you want. There's the machines. And that's what they give them at meetings as well. There's not a sober addict that goes to meetings that I know that is not addicted to sugar. Most of them are still addicted to sugar. So in essence, they truly are still addicts. That's why if they try to stop and take that one drink, they're going to go back to it because they've never completely healed their brain. So it's not just, to me, I'm going to use the word dry drunks. So what they're doing is just not using the substance, but everything else they're putting into their body and into their brain, they're fueling your brain with the drug, and that's sugar. And that's why what you said holds true for 90% of the addicts. Okay? Because they're still using sugar. And let me tell you one more thing. The percentage rate in these rooms is horrendous. It's like 3 to 6% that heal. When are we going to stop believing it and saying something's wrong if that's all they're healing? Something's wrong. So that's my take on it.
Well, to clarify, just so the audience knows, I don't know, I think I talked to you about this, but I only went to meetings for the first 3 months that I was sober. Good. And because I seen the writing on the wall, and I'm not here to bash AA, no. But I'm not here to say that I agree with everything that they do. I feel as though that AA was a good way for me to meet people that went through common scenarios that I went through. It was more or less like them giving me tools to build a house with, but I had to build my own house. Yeah. And at the end of the day, your sobriety is your sobriety. So it's what works for you. I was in a situation where I couldn't go to meetings after the first 3 months, and I'm glad it happened that way. Once again, I believe it was God's plan. I didn't go to rehab when I stopped drinking. I went to outpatient rehab a year before then, and I relapsed. I feel as though that rehabs are not really as much to help people. It's more or less to mask the truth, because your true challenges come when you get out of rehab. But what I don't like about rehabs, and this is a big thing that I have a problem with rehabs, is they'll take somebody addicted to hardcore drugs like, heroin or anything like that, and they'll only keep them in there until the insurance will pay for it. So they really don't care about the people. What they'll do is they'll come in, and I've seen people, heroin addicts for 10 years, or people that are addicted to other really heavy drugs, and they don't even have them in there long enough to even detox, let alone to even get any treatment. They'll suck the insurance. I've seen people released from rehab in 10 days.
Well, you know where the drugs.
What did that?
Wait, you know where the drugs are coming from, right? You know they're all working together. We bring the drugs into our own country. So not only do we bring the drugs into our own country, do you know what they do? They take the drugs to poorer areas to see how many people they could kill with the drug, to see how powerful it is. Because if it can kill enough people, they know they got a good drug. So they're all working together. The rehabs, pharmaceutical industry, corporate America, they're all working together. So they're making people addicts and then pretending they're trying to heal them by brainwashing them. They don't make money if you're sober. Okay, so continue.
No, I agree. That's the point I was trying to get across. But you talk to some people about it, and they think you're crazy, because they think some people would say I've had people say to me "Oh, well, rehab saved my life." No, you saved your life.
Right.
Rehab didn't save your life. You saved your life because you made a decision to move forward with it. All rehab did is no different than being in jail. It just kept you away from your addiction for a short period of time, and it gave you a somewhat fresh start. But I feel as though when I went to meetings, I was leaving there wanting to drink more. When I stayed away from meetings, when I stayed away from meetings and networked with a handful of people that I talked to that went through sobriety and they stayed sober, 15, 20, 30 years, maybe two people out of the 3 months of meetings I went to, I kept in contact with maybe 2 or 3 people that had some serious time in. And I had teleconferences with them when I was out on the road and I couldn't go to meetings because my job, I was all over the place and working all different hours. I didn't have time to go to meetings. And I know people say, you can find times to go to meetings. Well, no, I surely couldn't find time.
No, and you know what? You're right, 100%.
So I networked with about 2 or 3 people over the phone when I was going through it mentally, because there comes a certain point when you stop drinking or you stop using drugs that it's not really the substance, it's the way your thought process is, it's the way you're thinking. And when you talk to these people, that have been through it, and it kind of does change your thought process, like how to cope with stress, anxiety, or any sort of situations. And I agree with what you're saying, what I said about, if you take yourself to when you were an addict, what were you going through at that point in time of your life? Where was your life at? Were you broke? Were you miserable? Were you depressed? Were you going through a severe loss of somebody? Like I lost my mother. I can say that after I lost my mother, I really kicked it into high gear with my addiction, because my mental status was not in a good place. So I believe to an extent that maybe you could heal yourself. Like you said, I think I'm in a lot better place I am right now going into my 4th year of sobriety, but I choose not to test the waters. I'm not going to go get a drink.
I agree with that. I agree with you.
Because with everything I'm doing right now is working for me. Why complicate it and try it? Because a lot of people said to me, you don't think you can have one drink? I said, I don't know if I could or I can't. Maybe I could, maybe I can't. But these past 4 years, I keep going up steps instead of falling back down them. So why test the waters? I don't miss it.
You shouldn't even want to put that crap in your body. I don't put anything unhealthy in my body. I mean, the thought about that is this: it's still sugar that's going to fuel your brain. It's going to mess you up anyway. So no, you're right.
Yeah. So I mean, that's how I feel about that. I mean, even AA and kind of entices you to, keep your addiction quiet, or your sobriety. They're like, oh, don't be telling everybody about your sobriety. I live in a very small little big town, they call it's like a little big town. Everybody knew who I was locally. They knew who my father was because he owned a successful business. When people see me falling off bar stools and passing out on floors, They knew who I was and what I was doing. There was nothing anonymous
Right.
about that. So why would I be anonymous about my
Thank you.
sobriety?
That was perfectly said. Okay, I was going there, but you did it. Okay, isn't that craziness? They want you to keep your sobriety a secret. This is craziness. That in itself should tell people, look, and I don't tell anyone not to go to AA or NA. I don't, because a lot of people don't have a good support system. Okay, we need a support system. But think about that. Why do you have to keep it a secret? You should be screaming that from the rooftops. It's crazy.
Yeah, I don't get it. I mean, you know, and then you got the other people that look at it from the different angle, that people like me and you trying to preach our stories and explain the breakdown like we just did. And they say like, well, you're just going out like almost trying to start your own cult and making people sober. I can sit across from family members at a pool and watch them drink. I'm not jealous of them. I don't have hatred towards them. I don't look at them as bad people, because you know what? They can have that one or two drinks and enjoy food on the grill and then go to work the next day and not affect their life. It doesn't matter what it is. Like you said, like when things start affecting your life negatively, no matter if it's alcohol, drug use, it could be a poor diet, anything. When things start affecting your life negatively, that's when you got to make those changes. Right. So with me, alcohol complicated my life. Alcohol was my setback. Alcohol was something that was holding me back from being a better me and being a better father and being a better person. And so it had to go. And it took for me to wake up in almost intensive care in a hospital to have my spiritual awakening. So there was no rehabs. There was a couple meetings afterwards, but I had enough of letting people down. And there was that day that, you know, I was arrested numerous times. I spent other times in the hospital due to my alcoholism. However, there was something this time around that made it different, that I felt that it was the first time I ever felt that I wanted to get sober for me and not for other people. Because those other times that I relapsed and stuff, I was trying to stay sober for family members. I was trying to stay sober for friends. I was trying to stay sober for coworkers. But Scott wasn't focusing on Scott. So this time around, when I did wake up in the hospital that one day, something felt differently. And I said, now I'm ready to be sober. And it sounds selfish, but until, like, I have so many people that call me on a daily basis, and they, like, locally, and they say to me, like, you know, I want to get sober. I want to get sober. But then, like, you know, they tell you that, and then 2 days later, they're sitting in bars eating food. And I'm like, what are you doing hanging out in a bar if you want to get sober? I'm not saying you can't, but, you know, they don't know what the word triggers mean. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you have to live a basic life. I actually had to alter the way I drove to work my first year of sobriety, because the route I used to take, I used to drive past bars that I would frequent before I'd go into work. Or, you know, certain places you shop. Like, people, places, and things are a real thing that needs to change.
I agree with that.
Like, there could be toxic people in your life, like, that entice you to drink. You know, like, you might have to eliminate some friends out of your life. You might have to eliminate significant others. It all depends on how much you want to change as a person. So at the end of the day, you got to worry about you first. Then all the other stuff comes afterwards.
Well, I want to comment on that. Okay, so what you're saying is right, but I look at it just a little bit differently, especially for me. I'm going to share this with you. During addiction, we are the most selfish creatures because we're not worried about anyone else in our lives. Our family members, we don't care. Obviously, if we're living in an addiction life, the only one we care about is ourselves. So I kind of look at that a little differently, that once we're ready to acknowledge and care about the people we love, I feel like that was a trigger for me to stop. Okay, when that cop pulled me over and said that, all that went through my mind was, oh my goodness, my family. I have to stop now. I could have just been arrested. Oh my goodness. So I looked at it a little differently. I looked at it that my entire life as an addict, however long it was, I was selfish. It was all about me. And once I decided to become clean and sober, it wasn't about just me anymore. It was about my family and everyone I loved. See?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I see what you mean. Like that's why I don't know. I say I guess because the way it sounds when you say it, like when somebody says like oh, you had to wait till you were ready to be sober. You couldn't just accept that your family had to be sober. No, because like it is at the end of the day, like all that stuff like you're saying, it does. Like you do care about
Yeah.
your family, but you have to put you
Yes.
first. Like I'm not saying like you're like a brat and you're like, oh yeah, I'm not gonna get sober till I'm ready on my time. Like when I say it like that, I mean like, you have to want to get
Yep.
sober. And that's
And
what I
you're
meant
right.
by that.
Yes.
Like not,
Yep. And you're right.
and you like you gain the respect back from your family and some of the friends
Yep.
like that you had that were loyal to you, but like you're gonna lose a lot of people too because there's some people that you'll have in your life that don't want to see you do
You're right.
better. They want to see you stay
You're
down.
right.
So if those people don't come around, don't be shocked that if those people you lose friends when you make those positive changes, but at the end of the day it's going to be an ultimate reward when you eliminate those type of people out of your life and you start doing the best version of you that you can
You're
be.
right. So I want to read another poem. And this poem is for everyone out there, not just addicts or any of that. This is for everyone. Because, Scotty, look at what you're doing. I mean, did you ever think you'd be doing these podcasts and helping save lives? Did you ever think that?
No, I used to hate doing speeches in front of classes
Okay? And I never shut up.
when I was in high school.
And I never shut up. But I never thought we'd be doing this. And everyone out there has talents and gifts. And unfortunately, some never find them and use them. I'm not special. Scotty's not special. Okay, guys? We all have something to offer. So that's where this poem's going to take you. It's called Utilizing Gifts and Talents. We are born with talents. We are born with drive, with different gifts to help us thrive. I knew early on I was born to draw and paint, to also write poetry, and to talk without restraint. Our gifts and talents should all be used. God's gift to us not be abused. We can go far in life for sure, using our gifts to go on tour. All our talents should be used to create ourselves and more, but then our job's to share them, to even up the score. You see, in life, what's needed is not just for ourselves. Once our gifts are mastered, take them off the shelves. A living we can make by spreading them around, not just for the money, but to spread a peaceful sound. Don't take for granted the gifts you're given. Go out and spread the joy. Our gifts are not to be held back for us to self-destroy. Put your efforts forth. Do not hesitate. All your talents, my friend, are never second rate. Never hold them back or you will surely die. Maybe not in body, but your soul will cry. Our gifts were made to share, our talents made to soar. Go through life enlightened and then you can roar. Be proud of who you are. Be happy you're alive. Once again, my friend, your gifts will help you thrive. By putting efforts forth, not keeping them at bay, your name will live forever, forever and a day. Go through life excited for what you sure can give. To yourself and others is our reason to live. Our grave will be quite lonely, but our legacy lives on. Make sure people smile with the breaking dawn. So that's for everyone out there listening. We all have special gifts and talents. Please find yours. Please find yours.
Yeah, definitely. And it's hard to like pinpoint what you're good at. I mean, like when I was younger, I remember like it took up to like playing 4 sports to finally figure out which one I was good at. Like I was like, oh, I'm gonna be a good baseball player, and I couldn't get good at it. I'm gonna be a good football player, and like that leads on in life. Like everybody has a talent. It's just what you're gonna do to expose that talent and bring out the like what's gonna be your niche. And I'm still trying to figure out. I mean, I like doing this, but I'm still somewhat young, so maybe this will be it. I don't know, but don't give up, you know. And I want to go back to we talked about like the platform of my podcast about not giving up hope and faith and to make those changes. And as I told you, I'm not going to air like in the specifics, but There's a close family member of mine that's battling stage 4 cancer right now, and I'm sure that there's somebody out there, maybe our listeners know, that is battling cancer. And it's definitely probably the hardest fight that anybody's going to have to go through. So, being from what you went through, what is some positive advice you can give those people that are suffering, that dealing with battling cancer? What are some good positive advice you can give them to try and keep fighting and instill the hope and faith in what they're going through?
Okay. So, I'm a nutritional health coach, guys. I cured myself of 2 cancers, completely natural. I've studied everything about it, okay? And whatever I'm going to tell you, please research, all right? I'm not giving you opinions, I'm giving you facts. Cancer can only thrive in an acidic environment in your body. If you can make an alkaline environment, it will die. Cancer must die once your body is alkaline, okay? There's even these test strips you can take, you spit on them and it'll tell you if you're alkaline or acidic. Everyone who has cancer, it will be completely acidic, probably 0. So the first things that I'm going to give you some advice on doing is changing your diet. Get rid of all sugar. Sugar is the #1 culprit here. Get rid of all processed foods. Try to eat mostly plant-based, and try to eat as much organic as possible, because your body's already sick. So all the chemicals that are on our foods is just keeping it sick. I chose not to do chemo and radiation because what happens is this: chemotherapy kills off the good cells. And once that happens, it's very hard for the good cells to keep you healthy. A lot of people that I've talked to, that I tried to help, got cured from chemo and radiation, and they were good for about 5 years. But the cancer came back strong. And that's because they never kept their body alkaline. So if you could get to a point, do the research. You could always reach out to me, guys, okay? All my services to you are free. If you could get to a point where you could maintain an alkaline pH environment in your body, cancer cannot survive it. Okay, so start with the sugar and all processed foods and try to go as organic as possible and as much plant-based as possible. Start there. Even bottled waters, they're all toxic, all of them. So if you can get, like, I have a filtration system under my sink. It wasn't that much money because it's under my sink. And I have pure water. So why don't you try starting there?
And Jerry, for those people that aren't battling cancer and stuff like that, like, after you went and you obviously were diagnosed by doctors that your cancer was gone, do you still live life with that high alkaline diet? And so what you're saying is, like, that with the alkaline diet, if, like, somebody went on it tomorrow, no health issues right now whatsoever, that could possibly prevent them from ever having cancer growing?
If you maintain, and it's not so much an alkaline diet, because there's a lot of BS out there now with diets that call themselves alkaline diets. No. Research a lot of foods and things, but a lot of things, research what will make your body alkaline. It's not so much just this food or that food, right? But yes, I've continued on with this lifestyle for 30 years, and I have no desire to ever change it. I'm a vegan, all organic, all plant-based. Everything in my home, even my bed mattress, is all organic. My sheets, my cleaning supplies, like everything that goes on are in my body. And again, I'm bragging here, 61 years old, I have not been on a medication in 30 years. I haven't been sick. So think about that. So yes, it's just keep your, and you know what the funny thing is though, Scotty, once you get really healthy and you start feeling better, you don't want to change. You don't want to go back to eat. I couldn't eat bad food if you paid me.
Well, you are what you eat. As you get older, you start feeling it. Like, if you eat pizza, you feel like shit. You eat a salad, you feel better. You have more energy. Like, I've even seen a difference in, like, when I eat a lot of greens, and, like, I mean, I'm guilty as charged with protein. Like, I eat grilled chicken and stuff like that. But, like, if I'll have, like, for lunch, like, if I'll have, like, raw spinach with grilled chicken, I don't even need a caffeine supplement. I just get alert from it, from the high iron and the
Well, let me
greens.
tell you something.
And
You don't have to be completely plant-based or vegan to be healthy. As long as you're eating your grilled chicken and it's organic, then it's real chicken. We'll talk about that too real quick. But stay away from processed meats and all that crap, and stay away from seafood. The mercury levels in our waters today are horrendous. Stay away from all seafood. Seafood is a killer. But listen to, there's some shows out there on Netflix. Forks Over Knives, What the Health. There's tons of them now. They take you behind the scenes in slaughterhouses and show you what they're really doing to the so-called meat. It's not even meat anymore that you're eating. But if you stick with USDA grade organic, the little green circle, you can have your meat, you could have your chicken, you could have a little piece of steak once in a while. I mean, you don't have to be completely plant-based to be healthy, as long as what you're putting in your body is healthy.
So you're saying that, though, from what your research is and from what you just stated, that like people that aren't battling cancer, if you're willing to change your diet up and stuff like that, you could possibly cure your own. And the people that aren't sick yet, by following a steady diet like that, you could prevent yourself from getting sick.
1,000%. Okay, did you ever hear of Dr. Joel Fuhrman? Okay.
I didn't know.
Dr. Joel Fuhrman's pretty famous now. He's been on Dr. Oz. He's been on Oprah. He's from Pennington here in New Jersey. So he's a good friend of mine. I've interviewed him a couple times. So I go way back with him. My father is gone now, but listen to this. So my father became a diabetic. My father married my mom, who was an American Italian. Okay? So my father, we had all homemade food weekends and all that. He would make everything homemade, but he ate processed foods. Okay? Also. So he became a diabetic, gained weight. He was on insulin. He shot insulin for over 25 years. Okay? We didn't know back then. I didn't know back then. I was young, you know? And next thing you know, my father goes into an insulin coma right in front of us. I was in my 20s. So, of course, we called 911. They had to put Cairo syrup in his veins to bring his insulin levels up. They end up bringing him to the hospital here, this local hospital. He was there for a couple of days. I called Fuhrman. He's like, Jer, get your father here. Pick him up from the hospital tomorrow and just bring him here. So, get my dad. And I made a wrong turn, and my dad goes, you're bringing me to that witch doctor, aren't you? I go, yep. So we go to Fuhrman. You ready for this? He got my father off of shooting insulin after 25 years in less than a week. My father is in Dr. Joel Fuhrman's book, Eat to Live, Geri Petito. He became instant plant-based. He did everything Fuhrman said, and he was off insulin in a week. What we didn't know was this. Insulin is the number one cause of Alzheimer's. So because he had shot it up so many years, it was inevitable. Now they're starting to call Alzheimer's diabetes of the brain, but they still give them the insulin. Okay? So my father, God blessed him because he only had it for about 5 years. I know people who've had it for like 10. And my father went peacefully with me. You know, the whole family was with him. But yes, if you're feeling good and you make all the right changes now, you won't deal with any of these things. I mean, think about what you're willing to do to your body that's not healthy. Say to yourself, well, now am I willing to make all these healthy changes? Do I love myself and my family and my kids that much? Okay. My grandson is 21. His sister is 7. They've never been vaccinated. I actually protested in Trenton with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I met him there. I protested twice with my daughter for our rights, for our constitutional rights, because they were trying to take them all away from us. I protested in Trenton a couple times with my daughter, and I even protested with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. once for our constitutional rights, for our religious rights, for exemptions. So both my grandchildren, and again, my grandson is 21 and my granddaughter is 7, have never been vaccinated. And the reason I'm even bringing that up is this. We didn't know the dangers in vaccines. There's so many dangers in vaccines. And we've got to just be mindful, and we've got to research. Do your research, guys. Now, when we go back in time 22 years ago when my daughter was pregnant with him, I found a Christian female lawyer who was able to get me on a religious basis these exemptions for my grandson to get him all the way through school with no vaccines, okay? But I did the research back then, and we didn't have Google. I've traveled all over the world to research everything. So recently, like I said, before COVID, I was in Trenton with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I mean, guys, do the research for everything in your life. That's our duty. We're not supposed to just listen to everything they want to tell us, because everything now is for money. They don't care. If we're healthy, they do not make money in this country. We pay for our own health insurance. If you go to other countries, Australia, I've been behind the scenes in Australia as well. The government pays for their health insurance, so they want to keep them healthy. So they are not allowed to bring in any crap there. I've been behind the scenes in Starbucks, McDonald's, and they're cracking open in McDonald's in Australia organic eggs. Okay? They cracked them open in front of me. All their coffee bars in Starbucks, all organic. Coca-Cola has to take out all the sugar if they want to bring Coke to Asia. Wherever the countries say yes to these companies, they have to take out all their crap. Okay? I was in Asia, I was in my 20s, and they just brought McDonald's over there. And my cousin took a sip of this Coke and said, "This is poison." And they all laughed at us, and they said, "That's because we only have 1 teaspoon of real sugar in ours here. If Coca-Cola wants to be here, this is how it has to go." So guys, understand that. They're not trying to keep us healthy here. Not with our food, not with the medicine, not nothing.
It's no doubt we have the most unhealthy country in the world. Right. I mean, you could just walk around and see it with your own eyes. I mean, whether it's, drug addiction, obesity, it just, like, I want to go back to, like, you were talking about your father, and my brother's wife, my sister-in-law, her father, who I admire a lot for this, where I come from, and it's a lot in America, people love to give justifications, like, "Oh, I'd love to lose weight, but I don't have time to go to the gym." They don't understand, like, well, if you just, not put garbage in your mouth, you could lose weight without going to the gym. If you go on a different diet, you don't have to go to the gym. I know a guy that went and won a whole bodybuilding competition. I mean, yeah, he went to the gym, but he didn't do 1 minute of cardio because he didn't take a cheat day for 3 months straight because he didn't put any garbage into his body. He got gold right across the boards. But back to my sister-in-law, her father, he was a bigger guy his whole life. Lived unhealthy, overate. He became diabetic. He took a stand for himself. He dropped like 60 or 80 pounds, and he went on a severe diet. He started exercising, lowering his portion sizes of his meals. He lost like 60 to 80 pounds, and he's no longer a diabetic. Beautiful. Just because he made some no medicine, just decided that I am done living unhealthy. Yes. I'm going to start eating, and he cured himself of diabetes. I mean, the people that I know that are diabetic that suffer still want to eat a piece of cake with their coffee at nighttime. They want to eat a donut in the morning. They want to eat a cereal that has high sugar in it. I mean, they're still putting sugar into their body, and they can't understand why. I don't know why my sugar's out of control today. Well, what did you eat? You know what I mean? Oh, I had a sandwich. Well, look at the sugar content in white bread. Like you had a sandwich. Everything. Like that doesn't mean. And they think because I only put like 2 pieces of meat and 1 piece of cheese on the sandwich. No, there's so much sugar in the bread. That's why your sugar's elevated.
It's not even real meat. Oh, and one more thing about sugar. So you ready for this now? And you can research this. It's no longer sugar. Everything now is high fructose corn syrup because that's even more addicting. So that is really, truly why the addicts will be addicts forever, because they refuse to get off of sugar. So it's now high fructose corn syrup. It's not just even regular sugar. How about that?
Yeah, there's a lot of you talk about documentaries. There's a lot of documentaries about that being an additive that it's terrible for
Yep.
people. Jerry, any thoughts about coming out with a second book, or
Well,
any thoughts of adding
Okay,
to
so
the
I
book?
already did add to it. I'm not going to come out with a second book because I'm going to try and make this into maybe a screenplay now. This was the first book. So what I did was, instead of writing a second book, I didn't want to touch my baby. So in this book, okay, so my first book had technically under 50 pages. So this book has technically almost like 245 pages. But what I did was I told them, leave my first book in the very beginning. And then when you get to the page where it starts the new book, it actually says from this page forward is my revised edition in 2022. So it is like a second book, but I didn't want to touch the baby. So
So it's like your Bible.
Yeah.
It's your Old Testament,
okay,
New
thank
Testament.
you. So but I want to mention, everybody listen. You can go to my website, please, geripetito.com, and you can go to the book page and you could order the book right from there. You could go right to Simon & Schuster's bookstore, Archway Publishing. It's out in Amazon, Barnes & Noble, online, it's everywhere. BAM now. I mean, you can get it anywhere, but you can go right to my website. But I'm working an idea up where I want to do a screenplay. And I want to make it more of a comedy. Because we have to, I mean, even the cover. Look at the cover. Come on, that's my face on the donkey with a heart-shaped butt, right? I mean, I have to bring humor to what went on in my life because look where God's brought me, right? So I want to do something with it, but bringing humor to it that makes people want to see it and laugh at themselves and say, you know what? She's right. I could change. You know, that's my thought process.
Well, I mean, humor makes people happy. Living the life that me and you live now compared to what we used to live is happy. So you got to have some humor. Like it shouldn't be a segment of scientific explanation and all seriousness. Like I don't know. I mean, I still believe in that old method. Like when like the don't put your hand on the hot stove method. When you start preaching to people and you start telling people not to do something, they're going to want to do it more. Like when my family used to get on me, and as immature and selfish as it sounds, when people used to get on me and saying, please don't drink tonight, please don't drink, that would entice me to want to more. And so like if you have, like if we keep preaching, don't do this, don't do that, the people are going to want to do it more naturally. And I feel as though that by just sharing stories of our past and other people that I bring on my show, other people you bring on your show, that's when it like starts clicking. Like, wait a minute, that sounds like me. We're not telling people not to do stuff. Whatever people gather out of this, that's on them, you know? So it's not like me and you are trying to develop a cult and live and have the United States of sobriety in America. Like if you have a problem, you know, own up to it and fix it, you know, and if you don't want to, then consider continue to live miserably, you know?
All right, so you said the words own up to it, right? So I tell everybody, take responsibility and KYW, know your worth. The first thing is taking responsibility, right? Owning up to it. That's what has to happen before any changes can be made with anything in life. I love how you said that, yes.
Well, because we like this, I notice in society, like people have a big lack of accountability. They'd rather deflect and defend than accept and own up to their problems. They would rather say, well, you know, like I said earlier, like, well, I can't lose weight because I don't have time to go to the gym because I work 2 jobs. Well, what do you eat when you're at work? Like that could be a factor, you know, like people that, you know, complain all the time, like, well, I'm broke.
Right.
Well, why don't you go get a second job?
Or stop spending money
Like,
on crap. What are you spending money on? I mean,
Yeah, that's the same person that has a $10 Starbucks
Okay.
coffee every morning.
Those are the people that
You
say
know,
to me, but organic's so expensive, I can't afford it. No, 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 no. If you add up everything else you're spending money on, your $10 Starbucks coffee, your crap, your this, your processed foods, your right, I guarantee you it's cheaper eating organic because I don't eat any of that crap.
I have a guy that I know that I was talking to a couple weeks ago, and he's like, "Oh man, I wish I can go to the gym with you." And I said, "Why can't you?" And he's like, "Well, I don't have $40 for a gym membership." And I said, "But you just told me you got a pie of pizza and a stromboli on Friday night. That was $40 right there. So you could have got a can of tuna for $1, and then went and used that money to go to the gym and get a
It's
gym
just
membership.
all
Like
excuses.
it's
All
just
excuses.
it's just it's funny."
All excuses.
But yeah, Jerry, I before we wrap up, I just want to like proudly announce me and you are going to get together in November. I'm coming on your
Okay.
show.
Do you remember the exact date? Forgive me. I have it written down. I can
Give me
look
a
in my
second.
book.
It's the first Tuesday in
Okay.
November. I know that. It's going to November the
Okay.
1st.
I can't wait.
And as far as your book goes, inside of the description of this episode, people can find the link. I'm going to attach the link to the
Okay.
bottom of the description in this
Thank
YouTube
you.
video, so people could take a peek at your book. And just want to thank you for coming out tonight. And a lot of the advice, whatever we didn't cover tonight, I believe we can cover on our next show, because I don't want to go into too much, because then we won't have nothing to talk about on the first.
Well,
So
I want it, but we have different
um,
listening audiences, so it'll all be amazing. And I want to thank you for honoring me with this interview today, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart. Thank you, sweetheart.
yeah, like I said, I hope what I want out of this is, I think, the same thing you want out of your show. I just want to help people. Like, it's nice when I look at my inbox and I have people reaching out to me and saying, what could I do to make changes? And when I was younger, when I was a good hockey player or I was in better shape at the gym, people would come to me and ask me for advice. When I became an addict and I got weak, people stopped coming to me asking me for advice, because nobody wanted to be like me. Now that I'm open about where my life's been the past couple of years, and people that want to make that change, that's all I want out of this, is people to help people make that change for themselves. And that's all that I want out of this, is to inspire others to
Amen,
change.
baby.
If they're
Amen.
if they're
Right.
struggling, I'm not trying to change the world. I'm not trying to be Superman. But if you're on the fence about making that change, I want to be that one to push you into, yeah, I need to really start making those changes in my life.
You're awesome. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Jerry, and I'll be in
Okay,
touch with
thank
you.
you, sweetheart.